Hey guys, welcome to the second lesson of this week. This one should take about an hour. Don't forget you have your question doc. This new vocab doc is useful for you. Open it, keep track of all the vocabulary. Here is your do now. Which animal, you guys saw these pictures in the last lesson. Which animal do you think has genes most similar to human genes, and why do you think that? It's almost the same question as I asked you before. This time I want you to think about the anatomy is similar if the genes are similar. So go ahead and pick an animal, lizard, bird, whale, or bat. Which one has genes most similar to humans and why? And finish that and pause the video, finish that, and let's keep going. Okay, I'm hoping that you guys got a chance to pause the video. I'm going to come down here to the agenda. We're going to talk about the rubric again. I got some vocab. We have a few different things in this lesson. We're going to talk about, we're going to look at this kind of other website to look at speciation. We're going to focus today on how to explain your evidence in your ACEs. Remember this unit, we're writing an ACE response, which is like erases, right? Just without the R and the S at the end. So you're going to answer the question with a claim, cite evidence, and then explain your evidence. So today we're going to focus on explaining our evidence. We're going to look at some whales and their skeletons and their evolution, do a little practice, and then an exit ticket at the end. So here's our rubric. On the last lesson, we worked on making the claim and citing evidence. Now we're talking about how to get up to a 3 or a 4 is the quality of the way we explain our evidence. If we can start including information about genes and common ancestors, and I'm going to walk you through all these things, that's how we're pushing our ACE up to get an exceeding standard. So this is a new word for us. This is called speciation. Speciation. It is the same root as the word species, which you remember is like the very specific group of organisms that can interbreed. So a speciation is just the process of making a new species. All life today has changed over time, but all life started as just a single cell. 3.5 billion years later, there are countless species on Earth. We call the process where a new species is formed speciation. There's a little picture over here. This kind of quickly breaks down how this works. You have a population of butterflies. They're all the same. They're the same color. They get separated. Now they can't intermix anymore. And on the different sides of the river, there's different selective pressures, so they are changing differently over time. You're going to have purple and white butterflies, maybe, if natural selection made some purple and made some white. And then they won't interbreed anymore if they mix. So you have new species. This word evolve is a good word to know how to use. It just means to change slowly. When we talk about evolution in biology, we talk about how life is changing slowly, but your other things can evolve too. Your ideas can evolve. Politicians often talk about how, oh, my ideas have evolved on this situation. So if they've been a politician for a long time, they might have a different stance on something. So that's important. And again, hey, common ancestor, it keeps coming up, and we're going to talk about it again today. The most recent species from which 2 other species evolved. We're going to talk about having a common ancestor recent, like your parents, your grandparents, maybe even like 1,000 years ago, 1,000,000 years ago, and a common ancestor from a long time ago, 100 million years ago, 1,000,000,000 years ago. We're going to compare how long ago we shared a common ancestor. Okay, so right here, what I want you to do is click on the interactive. I think this picture and this link both take you to the same place. This is really cool interactive. It has so much information. You don't need to memorize everything. It says a lot. If you're interested, go ahead and keep clicking through. You actually have to click on this little bear paw. It'll like talk to you and it'll highlight things. And then when it stops, click on the bear paw to go to the next one, or you can always go back as well. But I want you to get enough out of this to be able to answer these questions here. So this says, to learn when 2 species diverged when they last had a common ancestor, scientists can compare their what? Once you figure that out, come back and fill this in. If 2 species have very similar genes, you can infer that they had a lot or a little time to change and have a more recent what? When there are many differences in DNA of 2 bears, that means that they are closely or distantly related. These are important. You're going to be using these later when you explain your evidence. And I think that this website is just really interesting. Bears are cool to learn about, and it just really breaks it down for us really well. So how do we explain our evidence for our ACE? This is the E in the ACE. Yesterday we talked about how we have to make our claim. We have to support it with evidence. And now we're talking about how do we explain our evidence. So the more that scientists can explain their evidence and connect it to science ideas, the better other scientists can understand what they have to say, which is important because they want everybody, like other scientists specifically, but other people as well, to understand what their ideas are. So for this unit, to get an exceeding standard, we want really strong explain evidence. And so this is what we're going to do. After you have already made your claim, I think these two things are related. That's because of these bones and these bones that are so similar. When we go down to the explain, we're going to talk about these 4 questions. Are their genes more similar or more different? And how do you know? Does that mean the DNA had a lot of time or a little time to change? And do they share a common ancestor relatively recently, or is it way back in time that their common ancestor was? And does that mean that they're recently or distantly related? Sorry, closely related or distantly related? Distant means far away. They were related, but way back, or closely related, like you and your brother and sister, or you and your cousin. Okay, so what this picture is, I want you guys to come back to this slide a lot today while you're writing. I tried to see if you look, these blue questions are the same. Same 4 blue questions as on the slide before. But I made a little flow chart. We've used these before in class. If your evidence is that the anatomy is so similar, so these guys are really similar because their anatomy is so similar, then use this side of the flow chart. That means their genes are going to be more similar because that means the DNA has had a little or less time to change. That means their common ancestor was more recent. That means they're more closely related. If your evidence is that these two guys are not closely related because their anatomy is so different, that means their genes are more different. That means their DNA has had more time to change because DNA over time will accumulate mutations. We've learned about that. That means that they shared a long common ancestor much longer in the past, which means they're more distantly related. So you're either going to follow this flow chart or this one, on the left or on the right. So I did that. Here's an example. So this is my example from the do now. Which is why I always want you to do the do now so that you can think it through first. This says the lizard and the human have the same number of phalanges in each of their fingers. The bird and bat and whale have different number of phalanges, which make their fingers different. Whales don't really have fingers, but so number 1, are their genes different? Because their phalanges are so similar, I infer that the genes of the lizard are more similar to the genes of the human. That means their DNA has had relatively little time to change, which means that they share a common ancestor more recently than with the other animals, and that means they're more closely related. So I just kind of linked those 4 questions, kind of helped me keep my thoughts in order, but I made sure to explain all of them. That would be an exceeding standard. Okay, so that was my example, and then you're going to have a chance to do this. Okay, so we're going to talk about whales in a minute. Whales are really cool. I love this animation. I want you guys to click on it and just watch. Remember that individuals can't change, or like I can't adapt. I can't hey, you know what would be cool? If I could grow hair, or if I could grow wings. That would be awesome because I want to fly. Not going to work. So, but populations change over many, many generations. So as you watch this is the best understanding that scientists have of how whales became to be a thing, how they evolved. There's no sound, so don't worry about that. Play this, answer this question. How did whales evolve? See how well you can answer that question. Here's the little card sort. We've done card sorts in class. Now one right here on your screen. So I want you guys to look closely, and you guys might need to go over here. My mouse is over here on the zoom. You might need to zoom in more. I don't know, 200%? Whoa, okay. Because you're comparing the modern baleen whale. This is a whale that exists today. And I labeled some of the bones for you again. Okay, vertebrae, hind, leg bones. Yeah, these are actually leg bones that kind of just stick around back here. Flipper bones, a skull, the rib cage. I want you to compare skeleton 1, 2, 3, and 4 and put them in order. So which one is the most related, which one's least related. So after you compare them and you decide which is which, you're going to drag. So maybe you think, okay, I think this one is probably most related. So I'm going to drag it over here. Boom. That's it. You're going to drag them and put them in order. That's it. That's what you're going to do. Oop. That's what this card sort is about. Okay, hold on. Let me, there we go. Fit. Now I'm here. Okay, so you can either use the card sort. You can click on this. It'll take you back to slide 15. You can click on this. It'll take you back to the flow chart. Your job is to say which card is most closely related to the modern baleen whale. Here's your answer. That's your claim. Cite the evidence. Be specific with your bones that you're using for evidence. And then here are the 4 questions broken down. All of this is your explain evidence. I'll highlight this for you. So this is your explain evidence broken down into 4 questions. Answer each of those 4 questions. That'll help you. This is just good practice. Here is a different one. So this says, which skeleton is least closely related to the others? There's 3 here. And the answer that this person, this fake person, me, that I wrote is the skeleton 2 is least closely related. So these 2, 1 and 3 are more closely related. 2 is like the one that's least closely related. I think this because skeleton 1 and 3 both have taller skulls with teeth, while skeleton 2 has a long, thin skull with no teeth. Also, the flipper bones are straight, but 1 and 3 have like an elbow, if you can kind of see that here, like an elbow here. Well, this one's kind of straight down. So that's evidence and answer. I want you to rewrite my bad explain evidence. I just wrote organisms that look different are less closely related than ones that have lots of similarities to their anatomy. What? That's not general, or that's not specific enough. That's too general. So will you please use the flowchart, use these sentence starters over here, and practice writing, rewrite this evidence, this explain evidence, rewrite it well. Take your time, make it good. Okay, and then finally you have an ace that you're gonna do from scratch by yourself, with none of the scaffolds. It's a brand new one. So I have a dog, a monkey, a sheep, and a human, and I gave you some of the names here. So you have a femur is your upper leg bone, and then just like your arm. Yesterday we looked, or the last lesson we looked at, you have 2 bones. You actually have 2 bones in your lower leg, your tibia and your fibula. You have a heel bone. You have tarsals, kind of in your ankle, metatarsals in your foot, phalanges in your toes. I want to know which organism is most closely related to the dog. Here's the dog. Which of these do you think is most closely related to the dog? Give me an answer. And then fill this out with your citing and explain evidence. And I'm going to use this rubric to help give you an assessment on it, to help give you a grade. If you master this, you will have time. You will have an opportunity next week to do a different lesson where we're going to look at how DNA, specifically like DNA tests, have led scientists to learn which things are closely related. If you do this and you're still kind of getting a 2 or 3, your explain evidence isn't quite there yet, or our evidence isn't as specific as we want it to do, there will be another opportunity next week to practice a little bit more. Okay, because it's good that we learn evidence of evolution. I think that's important, but also just being able to use evidence and explain it well is a thing you do. You know this. You do this in LA class. You do this in history class. You do this in science. It's just a thing that adults do well, right? Like, a lot of jobs you're gonna have to be able to say, I think this is true because, and lay out your points. That'll be important for you. If you haven't yet, will you please register for your electives next year? You guys all have 3 semesters to fill, and only about half of you have registered. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, go to your advisory Google Classroom, because your advisor probably posted it there and is waiting for you to register. If you want help with that, you can email your advisor. You can email me. I'll send you a link. I'm happy to help with that. That's it. You guys have a great day, and turn in all your work. Bye, guys.